Reading books could be the best, but also the worst thing that you can do as an aspiring entrepreneur or someone trying to make it in business. And I'm gonna tell you the pros and cons. And I actually got a lot of pushback on a TikTok video that I did saying that reading books makes you dumb. I wanna have some clarity around the subject and kind of explain what I do related to reading books and consuming content and some of my pitfalls along the way. I think reading books is one of the best things you could possibly do as an entrepreneur or anyone trying to learn anything. But where you can get into trouble is if you're reading a topic. Now, for example, I created an app that failed called TrainerBin. I was reading a lot of books related to the Elon Musk, the Reid Hoffmans, who's the founder of LinkedIn, like all the guys from PayPal, Peter Thiel, all the main dudes in Silicon Valley who are absolute beasts. No one in the world is like them, so you can't really compare yourself to them. So you gotta understand when you're reading these types of books, you have to really understand the context of where you're at. I made a lot of mistakes related to that. I made a lot of mistakes by reading books of these other people that were VC funded, that had money, that had backing, that had big teams, that had some of the smartest people in the world from all over the world working for them. And I tried to take that into my own business, and it was very hard for me to kind of dissect through what I need to do versus what these guys did. It's easy to look at where someone's at the end of the day, at the Z level, but you don't know where they're at the A level, when they started, A, B, C, all the way through. You don't know their full process. So it's hard to really understand from a book, especially an autobiography. Now, where books can be awesome. And if I can hindsight build an app, there's a book related to building apps or building startups called The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. It's unbelievable. It's one of my favorite books. If you just listen to that book and you dive into that book and you understand what a prototype and an MVP and all these topics are around startup, and you really just laser focus on that one thing instead of reading Lean Startup and then reading how Elon did it, and then reading 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, and then reading Blitzscaling by Reid Hoffman, and you're now diluting your brain with all these other ideas that are basically paralyzing you. It's creating minutia. So you don't want to create minutia for yourself. You want to learn a topic when you read. So if it is tech and you do read Lean Startup, dive more into being lean, dive more into productivity, dive more into 80-20 principle. That would be like a subset of staying lean, like what matters here. Dive into customer development, how to ask your customers the right questions. So if you're building an app, you need user feedback. How do you get user feedback? Instead of, you learn Lean Startup, you're like, now I'm gonna learn how Elon did it. That's not how it works. So you really have to stay on target with what you're reading and put things into your brain that are within context and within where you're at in life. Too many people just read too much and then they get paralyzed. They don't even come up with their own thoughts for themselves. That would be my best advice related to reading. Now for me, I notice it a lot of my friends because I tell my friends like, yo, read this book, or like business associates of mine, read this, I just read it, it's awesome. 3 weeks go by, I'm done with it in 4 days and they haven't even started. Or they started and they stopped. That's the common thing with reading books, start and stop. What changes for me is I only do audiobooks now. Very rarely do I read the book. Sometimes I do, and I have. If I really love it, I have. Audiobooks, I just finish it. And there's other videos of me talking about real leaders, real successful people. They finish what they start. They don't open the page, they'll open the book and read 6 pages and then stop. I noticed myself doing that and I wanted to change it. I'm like, how do I change that? So I gave up listening to music in the car and I only listen to a book. Done. And I drive every day. I gave up listening to music while working out. And then usually 3 or 4 times a week I play basketball, and I just shoot around. And I just consume content while I'm shooting. So I got shooting, I got working out, I got car. I can finish a book every week between those 2 things because I know I'm gonna be doing them every single day. Now, some may say multitasking, you're not gonna absorb as much information, and there's probably some merit to that argument. But would you rather absorb 80% of an entire book in 5 days or read 16 pages and give up? I would rather consume 80%. That's kind of the way that I looked at reading. I'm not gonna know every single word. I'm not gonna know every single framework or every single detail in the book. But if I hear something that's awesome and I love it, I clip and I put like, boom, 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 this is what I read. And then when I go back through the books, I go through my clippings. What did I read in Lean Startup, or what did I read in 80-20 principle? Boom, I go back, I look at my clippings, and then I have a little note, and it kind of reminds me of what I was thinking about at the time, almost like a little diary going back in my book. Another little hack, I start out every book, depending on the narrator, I start out every single book and I put it on like 2.5 or 3 speed, as fast as it goes. And I'll listen to maybe 4 or 5 minutes at the fastest speed possible, like brrr, you can't understand it. And then I go back and I'll take it from 2.5 and I'll put it at like 1.8, and it sounds like slow motion. It's like, whoa. It sounds so slow after you heard it so fast. So I desensitize my brain to the speed for 4 or 5 minutes, or usually a little bit less actually, probably about 2 or 3 minutes. I desensitize my brain, I go right back to the start. Some narrators are at 2x, some narrators are at 1.5. It depends how quickly someone talks. I'm more of a fast talker, so if you were to listen to this video, and I recommend watching my videos, watch them sped up. Who cares? I mean, unless it hurts my rankings, and even so, I don't care. If you're consuming the information, that's really my goal. I don't care if you hurt my algorithm. It doesn't matter to me. But watch them at 1.25 or 1.5 if you can understand it, consume it, and then you can get through more. So as my friends are trying to read a book and they get through an hour of a book reading and they're 25 pages in, I'm playing basketball, listening to the same thing, and I'm through 7 chapters. I'm halfway through a book in one day. So I do that where I can consume a ton of information related to a specific topic. I don't veer too off of one topic. Like lately I've been reading a lot related to productivity and just focusing on what matters. And I've always been that way, only do the things that matter and then just double down on those things and forget everything else. Like, does it matter for me to have a crazy studio here? Not yet. I got really not that many people watching these videos. So as soon as I know there's substance and people are enjoying the content, then I'll invest more money, more time, more resources into developing a studio or whatnot. Because I could do it now, but I just want to be able to spit content because I know I'll burn out if I am trying to do too much in the beginning. If it took me 2 weeks to build a studio and invested all this money and all this time, and then I have 4 people view it, I'm gonna be like, what the fuck? Like, what? I did all this work and no one pays attention? As opposed to just spitting, talking on camera, and just being myself and just making sure that I'm helping people. And then once I see people are learning and people are putting what I'm saying into use and they're seeing results, it's easier to make that jump and make that decision. And it's less time consuming for me. It's my 80-20, it's my one thing. It's less time consuming for me to do it this way as opposed to building a crazy studio and making, having all the glitz and glam and bells and whistles. So I hope that helps you. Moral of the story, be sure that you are listening to books. Just try it. I know you're gonna say, but I like reading it more. Okay, but how many books have you read? It's the beginning of the year right now. It's the first few weeks of January. I'm already through 4 books. So it's like, you can't compete with people that are doing things just more efficiently. I believe in efficiency. The entire first company I started, Twice Speed, was how to get from point A to point B in the fastest way, sprinting, right? I do the same thing with my brain. I do the same thing with business. Get from point A to point B in the most efficient way and cut out all the fat in between. I can promise you, if you listen to this video, you implement it, you're gonna start thinking new ways, you're going to start having different conversations, you're going to start asking the questions that matter, because a lot of times people are underdeveloped and they don't even know the questions to ask somebody around them. Their friends, their family, their mentors, their peers, whatever. They don't even know the questions to ask because their brain isn't abundant enough with the information that they need to store in it. So listening to books is one way to accelerate that and do so on a sped up as fast as you can. I even have my dad doing it. He listens to like 1.2 or 1.3x. So if you get the Audible app, do that. I highly recommend. I'm not affiliated with Audible. I'm not making an affiliate commission. I'm not making any money. The Audible app is unbelievable. I think Amazon owns it, still owns it, but get that app, start getting some books. If you guys need book recommendations, just leave a comment and I'll be sure to give you some recommendations based on where you're at in your life. Don't just say, what's the best book? I need to know about you and what problem you're trying to solve in order to help you and tell you which books to read, because I've read hundreds of books. So be sure to subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the content. And as always, I punch harder than you. There's no doubt in my mind.